Greetings. If it looks like I'm sitting in the dark, it's because I'm sitting in the dark. Um, I'm in a hotel in, where am I? Spain. I'm in a hotel in Spain. I just flew out from the job site in Africa. And I'm trying to get myself to a semi-close sleep schedule similar to what it is for my wife and my kid. So when I get back to the States, Dad isn't just laying in bed all day long for like the first couple of days. But very long trip. One of those trips that was only supposed to take me 2 weeks. Ended up taking me a month and a half. Kids or parents, don't let your kids become field engineers. It sucks. Money's good, but it sucks. It is nice not having a squat toilet and actually having an indoor shower. So I don't have to, like, when I wake up in the middle of the night to take a piss, I don't have to worry about an insurgent trying to grab me or, say, a hyena. So that's an improvement. But I've kind of been MIA and stuff because the country I'm in, or was in, doesn't have reliable internet and doesn't really have really reliable electricity on site. But I was stuck in my hotel room trying to, like, I don't know, catch up with stuff. And I noticed Leticia's got a bunch of new stuff. And I have to imagine that a lot of people, when they run into Leticia's stuff, I think it's a normal human reaction to go, wow, she's really out there. She's really unique, you know. Hardly anybody's like this. And in reality, if you talk to anybody who's a doctor, a police officer, or a social worker, or somebody that works at a drug treatment facility, whatnot, public defender, they'll basically admit that folks like Leticia are a dime a dozen. Most of the folks that I try to help out with volunteering at the VA, they're not anywhere close to like Leticia. When in reality, significant, like the guys that are a problem for me, my difficult cases, they're going to be just like Leticia, where they talk to you like they want advice, but they don't want advice. They want validation. So like they'll even tell you they have a cockamamie plan of doing something, and you could say, no, this is a good idea. Like, don't show up to your son's high school graduation. His mother, and his stepdad don't want you there, and two of the three have active restraining orders out against you. Don't show up there. And of course, it goes in one ear and out the other. And then the guy's calling me up, cussing me out because he doesn't understand why I gave him the advice to go to his son's graduation. But it's like, that is the exact opposite of what I told you, dumbass. And no, I'm not bailing you out of jail. But I've noticed in a little bit of catching up on Leticia's stuff, her thinking patterns and stuff. She kind of comes off to me almost like some of the guys that I try to help out that are heavy amphetamine users, where you could kind of tell when they're using more and more and more. They're going longer and longer periods of time before they crash out until eventually they end up in a psych ward or something, or they get arrested. But especially when they end up in a psych ward, like their families will get really ticked off at me because they're like, I don't understand, we got them in a psych ward and then they released them after like 48 hours. And I got to explain to the parent or the spouse or whatever, or the ex, it's like, well, look, the whole reason he disconnected from reality is because he's not sleeping. And that in turn causes the paranoia, the aggressive behavior, and so on. All they did was they sedated him for 24 hours, and that's enough to bring him back to reality. Once he's back at reality, they lose the legal authority to hold somebody. And I think the same thing's happening to Leticia here. I'm not saying that she's necessarily spun up on meth, but I do believe that because of her decision to sleep inside of a car in the middle of the summer in Arkansas, she's not getting any kind of REM sleep. I bet you she only sleeps at maybe an hour at a time, if not less than that. And I think that's what spins her up, her level of paranoia and stuff. and she starts seeing these cockamamie conspiracy theories and stuff. Leticia needs to get into like some sort of stable housing situation. I almost don't understand why she didn't just turn herself in and just. I don't know why she doesn't want to just sit in jail, because it's better than sleeping in a baking hot car with nothing. I mean, jail sucks. Don't get me wrong. I've never been inside of jail, but God knows I've visited enough of them to try to help people out. But I really, really don't understand her logic here. And I know in one of her videos she talked about, like, well, where do you want me to go? Homeless shelter? And it kind of shows you how stupid Leticia is. Homeless shelters don't keep men and women together. And the reason we can't do that, I volunteer at my homeless shelter when I'm in town. The reason why we have to keep men and women separate is, unfortunately, a not insignificant number of men who are chronically homeless are individuals that are basically sex offenders. And if they don't have a family member that they're able to live with, this greatly complicates their ability to secure housing. So we have, like, at least in my city, there's literally like 3 apartment complexes that a sex offender who does not have another family member to live with are allowed to reside in. These 3 notorious apartment complexes that are just filled with single men who are accused of or who have been convicted of doing horrible things to family members and stuff. And so because of this, whenever a woman or a woman with kids show up, we immediately get them moved off the area, and we get them into a hotel situation. Now, of course, it's not a good hotel. God knows Leticia can't handle going to a hotel, because she got kicked out of La Quinta or whatever in Little Rock, Arkansas. It's a shithole hotel, but you know the whole point is you're trying to minimize what the kids are getting exposed to, especially if kids are involved. I can only know of one time in like the last 10 years I've been volunteering at this homeless shelter where we had a woman show up with 2 kids, and we kept them in the homeless shelter. And that was a situation where I slept at the homeless shelter, because in the course of an hour, we got like 2.5 feet of snow, which is not normally what we get. So it was like everybody was stuck at the homeless shelter. And even then, we set it up to where the mother and the 2 kids were basically kept inside of the homeless shelter coordinator's office, so that the kids were kept and the woman were kept away from the men that were there. And I'm not saying every guy that's homeless is a predator. I'm not saying that. But it is a situation where we keep the gender separate like that. It's a safety kind of thing. It's the same reason why you can't bring drugs and alcohol into a homeless shelter, because we're trying to keep people safe and so on. But I really don't understand why she never applied for Section 8 housing. She would have gotten it so damn fast. There's a lot of things that she does that I just don't get. I know she had her one rant about getting kicked out of that hotel, and Leticia lets her casual racism slip. I can't remember the name of the woman at the front desk, but she's like, and then LaFonda, she's talking to me like, you don't speak to me like that. You don't know me. And it's like, Leticia, stop for a second. She's working the night shift at a low budget chain hotel next to the highway in Little Rock, Arkansas. As soon as the automatic doors of that lobby opened up and she made eye contact with you, she had a couple thoughts in her head. Heavily pregnant, hasn't bathed in a while, crazy eyes. She knew exactly who you were the moment you stepped in. She's not stupid. It's like, jeez whiz. And per Leticia's suicide stunt, I mean, I don't know. I don't really like talking about it, but I lost my best friend when I was in the military. Really good guy. He did a 4-4 contract. I did a 6-2 contract. And he got out like a year and a half before I was going to get out. And he'd been married. He was married, had a kid. He'd started his own business. Everything seemed really, really well. And then I guess one day he told the wife, "Hey, why don't you take the daughter? You haven't seen your parents in a while. Across town. Why don't you go visit them?" I guess she's like, "That's a great idea." She drives off, and then he went to a hotel room, got in the shower, called 911, put it on speakerphone, said, "I'm going to shoot myself," hung up. put a gun in his mouth and pulled trigger. And I think he did all that to try to minimize the risk of his wife or his kid finding his body. He put everything in order and all, and I didn't understand it. I was kind of pissed off and angry at him. Like, I don't know how you do that to a family member and stuff. But then it kind of gradually came out that he'd be keeping like audio recordings, and these audio recordings went on for hours about him talking to himself in regards to, crippling depression, severe survivor's guilt, and just, he for whatever reason he never sought out help, and never understood why somebody would do that. Like, I thought he was a real piece of shit, and it wasn't until years later that I was in rehab for severe alcoholism, and I ended up on suicide watch for probably a month because I was losing my coping mechanism. Basically, what he did with a small caliber handgun, I was doing the slow way with obscene amounts of alcohol. I was a functional alcoholic. And then, when I went into rehab, I no longer had that. And then, of course, all the shit that I've been deadening with the alcohol came flooding back: the survivor guilt, the depression, the self-loathing, the self-hatred, the just pure pit of despair and shit. And thankfully, I was at a very good rehab center that my employer was paying for. And, yeah, they saw through my bullshit. So, like, I spent basically a month and a half at this rehab, first month and a half, where I was not allowed to have anything but a pair of shower shoes, a pair of gym shorts that didn't have the string attached, and then a T-shirt, because I was literally I was in a really dark, bad place. It took me a very long time to kind of get out of that. Thank God for my wife standing by me and so on. But my whole point is, usually, from my experience, and it's not just my friend, unfortunately, again, really great guy. What I see typically is individuals that isolate themselves completely, and they will set up their suicide in a way that closes off loose ends, and they make it impossible for anybody to stop them. It's not done on a live stream where you're baiting an audience. Oh, I'm going to take these pills. I'm going to take these pills. Also, it was very odd that in the hospital, when Leticia was recording herself, she complained that they didn't pump her stomach. I don't think Leticia understands what getting your stomach pump involves. If she did, she probably wouldn't be disappointed they didn't pump her stomach. I don't know how many pills she took. I only saw it once. I didn't really watch it a second time. I did notice, I think I noticed this. She swallowed the pills, off screen. The EMTs, what ends up happening in a situation like that is once the police are able to secure Leticia and secure the room, the EMTs come in, they start checking her, and the first things they're going to ask her is, what have you taken? And I'm so sure they're able to put two and two together. There's that big pill bottle there. So the EMTs would have scooped up every single pill they could find, put it back in the bottle, and they would have taken the bottle with them, because the very first thing the ER doctors is going to ask them is, what did she take and how much? And of course they're going to be like, this pill bottle here. And of course they're going to pour out the pills onto a tray and literally count them. And I have a strong suspicion that Leticia didn't take hardly any of those pills. And I really, really dislike her suicide baiting, because really what she's doing is, it's no different if her kid was born and he's like a 3-year-old and she's got a butcher knife against his throat and she's on live stream saying, give me what I want. If you don't give me what I want, I'm going to start carving, kind of thing. It's really effed up when you think about it. But of course, I don't think anybody's watching anything like this going, like, hey, it's trying to argue that Leticia is functioning in a normal way. So I think she will realize, though, with this stunt, and based on like some of her posting on Instagram and shit, that she's kind of realized that there is no way in hell she's going to be allowed to keep the kid. I was thinking for a while that the state of Arkansas, all U.S. states do not like taking kids into foster care because that makes them a ward of the state. And so typically what will happen is They don't want to take children and put them into foster care. They rather give them to a family member that's willing to take them, kind of thing. So I kind of suspected that they were going to give Leticia's son to her mother if her mother was willing to take her. But I think the combination with Angel or whatever being a felon living in the house, and then the whole screwed up thing with her relationship with her mom, I really don't think that that Leticia's kid is going to end up anywhere other than foster care. So that's kind of a mess. It's a real shame for the kid because the kid is honestly the only innocent one in this whole god awful cluster F. Just a terrible situation. Really, really sad. And that's usually where, like, when I'm trying to help a veteran, a lot of times I struggle with dealing with these guys because you just want to throttle them. Go, your kid, you dumbass, your kid. Your kid's what should be important to you, not your drug, not your alcohol. It should be your kid. It's just messed up. I apologize, I'm rambling. Also, I apologize. I know it can be hard to understand. I'm actually deaf from my injury, and I was severely injured in an IED explosion, and so I can only feel the vibration in my head, and so I can never tell if I'm enunciating all my words really, unless I play the video back with the closed captioning on YouTube, if it makes any sense. Half the time it's good, half the time it's not. I can never tell, and that I tend to get very monotone, so I know that's annoying. But I don't know what the Leticia's future is just going to get more messed up and more darker and so on. What is absolutely batshit crazy to me is she talks about how all these videos are for her daughter, which that's awful. No kid, especially if the kid, even if the kid was an adult, nobody wants to see their parent, even if they have no relationship with their parent. They don't want to see somebody like this that they come from. But the most batshit crazy about it, where she talks about like losing access to her kid and all, she could totally regain access to her kid. Like all she would have to do is like get housing, spend 6 months having a job, not do anything batshit crazy towards her ex-husband or his family, and it would be very easy for Leticia to then file with the court to regain access to her daughter. It kind of shows you how hypocritical she is, and ultimately, like, and this is true with a lot of the guys that I try to help out. A lot of times it just comes down to just like this brutal fucked up laziness, where if it takes any kind of work for anything, they can't be bothered, kind of thing. It's like Leticia's whole thing too, and it's another very common thing with the guys I try to help out. She is so goddamn awful with money. It's unreal. It's unreal. I'm fairly certain that in a span of a week, she spends more money on food than me, my wife, and my son combined. Like, it's effing unreal how much money she spends. And like, I don't know how she lives such a miserable experience. And it doesn't matter what anyone says to her. She only takes in what she wants to hear, and what she wants to hear is what validates whatever she's already doing. Like the batshit crazy thing where she could not understand why at the mental hospital, when she started stomping her feet, going, well, I'm going to leave. And they're like, okay. She's like, wait, I'm homeless. Okay, so they bring in the social worker, and I'm sure she immediately tried to regale the social worker with her entire life story, and the social worker's going to have to say, well, listen, lady, I've got to see like 30 people today. This is the paperwork you need to file. This is the people you need to contact. And then Leticia's response is, no, you do that for me. You make the big bucks. Kind of shows you how stupid Leticia is if she thinks social workers make a lot of money. But like the idea that a social worker is going to know like Leticia's financial statements and stuff, and is going to know anything about Leticia, and on top of that have power of attorney, like it shows you just how out of touch with reality Leticia is. But it ultimately comes down to she can't be bothered to do anything unless it's instant gratification, and it's it's always a very common theme with a lot of these folks. It's like, how do you not see the big picture? How? Even when I was a raging alcoholic, drinking myself to death every day, I was still able to plan like a week ahead of time. Excuse me. I just, I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know how anybody could do this with with a kid. I mean, on one hand, I understand being an addict and like really losing yourself in your addiction. But at the same time, I always hid my addiction from like my wife and my kid. They had no idea. But I don't think my son has ever known that I was a severe alcoholic because he was basically 3 when I went into rehab. And but like my wife had no idea. It wasn't. No, that's not true. That is the bullshit addict in me. I think she had an idea, but I also have a job where I travel so much. Sad part was I was trying to. I was gonna have to work in the office for like a month straight. So I tried to dial back my drinking because I didn't want to be drinking during the day, like I had been in the field, and that caused me to have an alcohol withdrawal seizure, which is a prime example of just how severe my alcoholism was. And then when I was in the emergency room, effectively, where they got an IV in me, a catheter in me, they're trying to keep my brain from seizuring due to alcohol withdrawal. I remember my boss talking to me, and he was just like, "Yeah, so we're gonna send you to rehab, and if you say no, well, we're gonna have to let you go." And I tried to do the dickhead addict thing of saying, "Well, I gotta talk to my wife," you know. And they did the smart thing. They 1-2 punched me. Like he just opened up the door, and she came walking right in, and he shut the door. You know, he went outside into the hallway, and I just remember how just my wife had 1,000 miles. She was glaring me down, and I remember she said, "You're gonna go to rehab," and I was like, I don't know if I could handle rehab, being away from you and the boy this much. Keep in mind, I have a job where I have to travel for work so much that I regularly get expat status as an American, which means I'm outside of the country for 330 fucking days out of the year. So like this argument, I can't go to rehab because I can't be away from you for 30 days. Biggest manipulative load of bullshit. And I remember my wife just she had the creepiest laugh. It was like ha ha, like it was the weirdest, most intense laugh. And I said to her, I was like, oh, like, this isn't funny. She's like, no, it's not funny. And she's like, you're going to rehab. If you don't go to rehab, I'm taking our son and lawyer up. Good luck ever seeing us ever again from this point on. And it was in that moment that I had my, the precipice. I was at my lowest. Everybody hits their rock bottom. And of course, everybody's rock bottom is different. Some of us, our rock bottom is literally when we're dead. And I was at that point where I was like, yeah, I don't want to lose her. I don't want to lose my kid. And so I agreed to go to rehab, which I first had to go to detox because I was drinking so goddamn. It was unreal how much I was drinking. Unreal. And that was fun. That sucked. That really, really sucks. So while I've never been in jail or prison, I have to imagine my time at detox was probably pretty close to being in jail. Uh, pretty fucking close. Wasn't fun, but I'm better now, thank God. I haven't touched a drop of alcohol ever since, so working good. And I'm looking very forward to seeing my wife and my kid come tomorrow evening local time. So that'll be good. That will be good. And hopefully I won't spend the entire time on the couch asleep for the first couple of days. Poor thing, I should have a couple of days with them before I have to go someplace else. That'll be nice. Normally, if anyone's wondering, normally I bring my wife on. Like I'll have her visit me and the boy will visit me when I'm on a lot of these gigs like this. But the country I was in, there was no way in hell I was no. It's just I don't have my wife follow me to countries where the CIA has travel advisories against. So, yeah, that doesn't normally happen. But yeah, I don't know. It's just I don't know how if somehow Leticia ended up in my um, volunteer list of people I try to help through the VA somehow. I don't even know how I'd begin to try to help her because it would just. Uh, again, she's very similar to the problematic cases I get because I get these guys. They want to regale me with their time in the military and why they're pissed off at the world. It's like I've heard this story 30 times, man. Like, you literally get 30 minutes with me. We're here to talk about you going into community college. This has nothing to do with you getting into community college. I don't give a crap about some guy 10 years ago tearing up your leave chit, and because of that, like, you're broken or whatever, or that you got passed up from promotion. Like, if you want to bullshit with somebody like this, go go to the American Foreign Legion or whatever and hang out at their bar. Like, that's not what I'm here for. I'm here to have a Zoom chat or whatever, and you're really wasting my time. And I've had it before where I've even gotten the asshole go like something like, well, I pay your salary. It's like, dude, one, you're destitute. You don't pay taxes. Two, I'm a volunteer. So it's like no one literally pays me. I'm a volunteer, you a-hole. The only reason I do this is because I'm an insomniac and I'm like 14 time zones from you. So it's no big deal for me to just log into a computer and try to chat with you and try to help you out. But don't pull this shit that you own me because I'm a volunteer. Like, that's not how this works. Good. Oh god, this is a rambling video. I don't know. At the end of the day, the most amazing thing about Leticia, and this is true for all of us, she could turn it around. She could always turn it around. You could always walk away from that precipice. She could completely start changing her life tomorrow. She has to want to. And I know there's a lot of people out there that think that Leticia is like legitimately insane. She's not insane. She has personality disorders. She's not insane because if you notice, every time she runs into different people, she can completely change her behavior. And people with severe mental illness cannot do that. Cannot do that. That's why schizophrenics get shot and killed by police all the time because they cannot follow instructions. You got a schizophrenic, it doesn't matter if I'm calmly talking to you or you've got 5 cops with their service revolvers pulled and they're all pointing at the guy. Doesn't matter who's talking to him. They just in one ear out the other. It's like a program missing lines of code. It's one of the reasons why I'm always scared at whenever I get pulled over, if I ever get pulled over by the police, because as a deaf person, I can't follow verbal instructions unless I can see your face. And believe it or not, deaf people get killed by the police at a pretty high click compared to the rest of society. Same thing with schizophrenics. So that's always fun. But that's not really a worry unless I'm in the United States. Oh, shit. Oh, that's some dark humor. But anyway, I hope everybody's taking care of each other. Everybody being safe. I cannot wait to get home. I'm looking forward to that.